today by Catherine Daou, who is a family constellation therapist, also an intuitive teacher. And today we're going to be talking about love consciousness. And so, Kat is going to tell you all about the amazing work that she does with family constellation therapy. But I was seeing a theme in my clients, and Kat, you could tell me, all about what you've been seeing too. But in the last couple months, a lot of my clients have been describing what feels like this healing that wants to happen on a collective level regarding love consciousness and what it means to love, to truly be loved. And also, what I've been noticing is a lot of people describing, having been loved for so long with a certain set of requirements or almost conditions, like having that be their barometer or measurement of love, and then stepping into this new level of partnership, relationship, and even family, and wanting to really like work with that energy of what does it mean to be loved unconditionally, but also to love myself in that way. So
Mm.
I'm gonna take it on to you, and yeah, let me know what you've been feeling and what you've been witnessing too with your clients and in your work.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here, by the way. I'm so excited to talk about this. I love talking about love when it comes to ancestral work because it is the number one resistance of every client in family constellation therapy, and it is also the one thing that moves people forward.
Yeah.
So, you touched on so many beautiful topics within the realm of love and family. And what I love about love consciousness is that we can really touch on two big themes that at least I see with clients. And that is, uh, and to kind of narrow down what you said, are we doing things for love or are we just being love because we are love and that is our role? And so, in regards to the family system, I tend to look at love as I tend to look at it from a few different perspectives. But essentially, family constellation therapy is the modality where we look at what traumas happened in someone's family system. How did they create patterns and cycles that were repeated over and over again? And then how can we heal that and clean that up for the client? And how does it ripple into the family system so that everyone can be free from the trauma that happened to them? That's like in a nutshell what this work is. And so, when we get to the end of a session and we're doing the healing statements and I'm channeling with my client and they're repeating the things that I'm channeling for them to say to their family members, a lot of times I love you will come through. And even I, as a practitioner, will be like, I don't even know if this person even wants to say I love you,
Wow.
but I will send that energy through to the client of like love because love wants to come through us when we're doing this healing work. So, when we talk about love within the family system, just like you said, there's conditional love and there's unconditional love. And at least for me on my journey, I've really had to sit with, is unconditional love even real?
Right.
Like, is it even a real like concept? Can I believe that my boyfriend is going to love me unconditionally? The reality of the situation is probably not. There's gonna be things that he loves about me, things that he doesn't love about me,
Right.
and the same way me towards him, there's gonna be things I struggle with. But this is, like, way above. We're talking about love consciousness way above the human experience. We're talking about tapping into the source, the creation source, love energy that we are all connected to. And when you do love, when you're doing things for love, you create separateness. So you're in that masculine conditional love. But
Mhm.
then, what's that?
No, I'm like, yeah, like
Yeah.
100%, totally, like, resonate for sure.
Yeah. And then it's like, well, then we're left with this idea of like, is unconditional love even real? How do we access that unconditional love? What does that look like when we're being unconditionally loved and
Mhm,
loving others? And
mhm,
so I think that while humans will never ever get to this perfect place with love where it's fully unconditional, I think that the idea is that love consciousness inspires us to be more loving humans. And that's really what I think my hope is for all people that do ancestral healing on, or really any healing, but I speak in regards to ancestral healing,
Right.
Can we be inspired by love consciousness? And I'm going to even take it in a little bit of a different direction. I work with Christ consciousness completely outside of the religious realm of compassion, forgiveness, love, and understanding.
Yeah.
And through compassion, forgiveness, and at least understanding, we can access healing through to love again.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I was just going to say, like, taking a step back, looking at what love consciousness is. And, in studying, I studied A Course in Miracles. I haven't gotten through the whole thing. I will preface with that. But it really is that reminder that the foundation of us, creation, the heart of source is love. Love is like the unbreakable bond. That is the one thing that unites us, but also separates us, like you said. And when we start feeling judgment or resentment or some of these heavier emotions, we have become separate from love. And we can, take a look at where within ourselves we've become separated, where within our family systems we've become separated, as a collective, where we've become separated from that love. Because, love is, again, like that foundational thing that really is a thread that combines all of us. It's like that one pure source of consciousness. And I wanted to oh, go ahead. Like
No,
whatever
go ahead.
I was going to say, by no means are we trying to indoctrinate anyone by talking about Christ consciousness, but I'm glad that you brought that up because I studied religion thoroughly in college, and the philosophy of religion, the basis of religions, and it's all the same, right? It's love and it's Christ. That's a common foundation. Whatever form, shape Christ takes and love takes in religion, it's this, we're talking about the same thing. And again, we're not here to indoctrinate anyone. We're just here to talk about our personal experiences and what we've seen working with hundreds of clients around the world and these commonalities, these common threads. Um, and I was born and raised Catholic, but there's a lot of things about Catholicism that I do not agree with. That
Mhm,
is separate from love, actually, in my opinion.
mhm.
And in studying Christ consciousness, walking with Mary Magdalene and the Rose lineage, and we could get super metaphysical, but we could also like come back to science, right? And like history books. Christ consciousness is a really real, tangible teaching and principle, and I would just love for you to dive deep in it because I know that you've been working a lot with that energy and you have some really beautiful things that have been like shown to you recently about Christ consciousness, which is super powerful.
Yeah, I recently did a subconscious hypnosis with my higher self, and I had 55 questions that I asked the facilitator to ask me during that session.
Wow.
And one of the things I wanted to ask about was one, did I have a past life with Mother Mary? Because I really legitimately feel like she is my mom. Like I know her, I miss her as if I've always known her. It like makes me so emotional to think about. I just absolutely like that is my mom.
Hmm.
But when it comes to Christ consciousness, I rejected Jesus for a very long time because the masculine was never safe for me.
Wow.
Growing up in my family system, I had people who should have had, who do have a masculine core, who are not in their masculine core. It was very wounded. There was a lot of, and so when I talk about that in the family system, I look at like toxic masculinity in the family system often presents itself as protection mechanisms, coping mechanisms, self-soothing mechanisms that aren't in our highest and best good.
Mm.
So there's a lot of that going on. And so I never vibed with Jesus. I just wanted my mama. I wanted Mother Mary. Mother Mary's had a very deep presence in my family as well. So I didn't really care too much about Jesus. And when I did this subconscious hypnosis, I was like, I could feel Jesus wanting to work through my work, and it made me really uncomfortable. And I was like, I just don't want to work with religion. I'm not, I don't consider myself Catholic. Like, but that's just how I feel. Well, this message that came through was that love, compassion, understanding, and forgiveness is the only way to heal.
Yeah.
And and by the way, if even if you're estranged with your family, you can still come to those values through yourself.
Right.
So when you love, forgive, and have compassion and understand yourself in your journey, you release a lot of the resentment and anger that you hold on to from the things that happened in the past. It's not always immediate. Sometimes it happens in layers and it takes time. But yeah, it's I've had a really interesting relationship. Now I view like Christ as my brother. He comes in and he supports me and he helps me with things. And he respects my boundaries and he understands I'm on this journey. But it's really, if we look at it less from a person and more from an embodiment of an energy, Christ is just love, compassion, forgiveness, and understanding. And like I said, a lot of people resist that in this work sometimes, or even the word Christ. That's totally fine. You can view it from whatever lens you want, just like you said. But at the end of the day, I mean, I've done this work for a long time and I've done a lot of this work on myself. And the only way I ever moved forward in life was when I was loving towards myself. I became more loving with my family in the ways that felt good and safe for me. I had compassion for where they came from and their stories. I understood where they came from and why they did the things that they did, and I had compassion for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I could totally relate. When I started my ancestral healing journey, even working really closely with my mother wounds, it was hard for me to come around to compassion for a while,
Yeah.
for a while. And again, like healing happens in layers. And so taking it slowly, like don't think that after one session or after one breakthrough, it's like, oh, yes, I could view this person with compassion after, the very traumatic or the wounds. It's not going to be that way. It's not. And, working with clients now, they're like, I just can't get to that place. And it's like after time, and it doesn't have to be like long either. Like maybe it's like a month or whatever. But like when we start saying like, oh, I always like to tell my clients it's that you're like on the path of healing when you could become an observer rather than a
Mm.
participant in the wounds. When you're like, oh shoot, like I see that, like I see the wound, but you're not triggered by it anymore, right?
And
And
you don't have anger towards that
yeah,
person, which
you don't have any like it's
yeah.
kind of cool. I see you. Like I witness it, I understand it, and I'm like moving through it, but I'm not participating, I'm not projecting it, I'm not re-engaging. And I think that's a really powerful thing, like a really powerful thing. So I want to go back to this idea of conditional love,
Mm,
especially in the family system.
mm,
Specifically, like for me and my clients, it felt like I was getting like a lot of women who want to move forward, and it makes so much sense. Like they're at a stage of their journey where they're calling in aligned partnerships, where they want to start families.
mm,
So this like idea of, well, if I do this, if I act a certain way, if I present a certain way, then this person will love me.
mm,
And conditional, like purely conditional love, like if I do this, if I'm the good girl, right, if I don't talk back, if I dress a certain way, if I you know then this person will love me. And man or woman, we could look at it from a lens of any perspective. So what has been your like work within that area, and like what are some of the themes and things that you've seen come up with this like idea of worth inherently being tied to love and our family systems?
Well, it's when you approached me to talk about this topic, I just melted inside because a part of me was like, my inner child was like, that was your childhood. And then the adult self of me was like, and you've learned so much and you're ready to talk about it. Conditional love is real. It is the basis of most human relationships. And it comes from I'm going to talk from a parent child perspective. If you had a parent that displayed a lot of conditional love, most of the time, we would call that parent a narcissist or we would say that they're selfish, right? But actually, inside of that parent is a child whose needs were never met, who got put last, who never felt seen, and they never felt good enough. And I believe, and I've done this work for so long, I really have never seen it differently than this, although, someone could prove me wrong. But I really truly believe that inherently we're all just searching for the things we didn't get. And so I think a lot of parents unintentionally put their children in a very controlled environment and box that's very conditional because they're trying to protect them. They're trying to keep them safe. They want their child to be better than they were. Like there are a lot of ulterior motives for why a parent would kind of push a conditional love on a child. Um, and I think that when that happens, at least in my experience, as an adult now, I have to take, like you said, take a really big step back and go, okay, I understand what this person really wanted for me. And I can acknowledge that they have good intentions and a really shitty way of doing it. And I have boundaries and I understand that when I grew up, and I tried to mold and change every single part of me to find love. It wasn't until I completely had like a life tower moment, got divorced at 28, moved away from my family, and kind of started living life on my own terms, that the unconditional love that I didn't feel that I got growing up, I had to find within myself. And
Mm,
all of the places that were conditional were learned behaviors through my family.
mm,
So this can really like show up as, how I was treated, what love looked like for me. A lot of things and this is common for a lot of people. If I do this, if I get straight A's, then I'll be a good daughter. If I lose weight, I'll be a good daughter. If I say the perfect thing in front of this stranger, I'll be a good daughter. Like we learn that love means we need to be a certain way or do certain things. And unfortunately, this sets the tone for the ways that we build relationships in the rest of our lives. And it's so subconscious. It's the way that we chase, relationships, romantic relationships, or friendships, or jobs. And this even can this kind of getting on a tangent, but this can even go into like attachment styles,
mm,
right?
mm,
Are you being I'm super disorganized sometimes. Like I'm either really secure and fine or I'm not. Like I kind of just I go in and out of it sometimes. But there are certain things that we see in our childhoods and we attribute that to being love. And so we go into the rest of our lives thinking if I have perfect blonde hair, I will be loved. Someone will see me as valuable. This is one that I've really struggled with. If my body looks a certain way, I will be deemed valuable and more lovable by my partner, which is like not the case at all. But it's like these subconscious programs and beliefs that we download into our childlike brains and we don't know the difference. We don't know how to separate these files from each other. Um, and it turns into kind of an unfortunate situation when we become adults because at least in my situation when I met my current partner, love looked so different that I actually ran away. Like love was so healthy that I ran away from it for like a long time because I didn't, my nervous system, like my body could not understand that someone loved me for like how I looked in that moment or that I didn't like they didn't care about what I looked like or what I did for my job or what all these things I was raised to think were conditional, which was my view of love. So yeah, I think conditional love is people who have good intentions, who are just trying to get their own needs met through the child, and that's kind of what I see the most.
yeah. Even as you're talking, it's so funny because I'll catch myself like speaking to our daughter who's 4, and
Mhm.
I'll catch myself like talking to her and being like thinking like this is going to be one of those beliefs that she grows up with. Like this moment is defining and not anything is like good or bad, like sometimes it's like really like I'm super proud when I hear the things that come out of her mouth where she's like my mom said that I'm brave, right? And she's like saying it like and I'm like, wow, I'm doing something right. And then some other times I'm like, am I like re traumatizing her? But what I catch myself doing is explaining,
Mm,
like, I'm just frustrated in this moment. That doesn't mean that what you're doing is wrong. It's just like your reaction to it. So I find myself like backtracking and making sure she understands like, this is temporary. I don't think this of you. Like, don't, it's almost like I'm trying to make sure that she doesn't like take it in subconsciously and like start attaching like, oh, if I do this, my mom gets mad. I make sure I kind of like, even in a moment of frustration, I kind of like remember to like go back and be like, oh, do you understand? Like, can you see it from my perspective? Do you understand why mom was a little frustrated?
Mhm.
Find
Well, that is love consciousness, though. You are embodying love consciousness because love says, well, your human self makes a mistake, and love says, I'm going to take responsibility for this and show them that they are lovable and that it wasn't them. And
yeah,
then you have love for yourself. You're having grace for yourself by saying, I made a mistake. I was upset. I'm sorry. I love you. Everything's okay. And I was just having a conversation with some friends about this the other night. She was saying, I left my daughter out. I got frustrated with my daughter and I left her in the house when we went into the garage and she freaked out and she thought I was leaving her forever. And I went back and I had to tell her. And she's like, did I mess up my kid? And I said, I'm not a parent, but what I think is that even if you make a mistake, if you repair 100 times with every mistake that you make, the kid is going to remember that you're human, you're
right,
humble, you're filled with love, you're going to make mistakes and also they're not going to beat themselves up for them making mistakes in the future. So I
right,
think repair is like that the repair that we do especially in like romantic relationships, you know, if my boyfriend and I have like a thing, like even if it's like killing me inside and my ego's like don't do it. Stand up for your feelings. Like I'm just like I just call in Christ consciousness. I like sit and I breathe and I'm like, okay, you're going to go and honor your feelings cuz you love you, but you're also going to go and honor the relationship because you love him. And so we repair every single time. And I think repairing after conflict, repairing after mistakes, repairing after you had a human moment, that's a form of unconditional love. That's love consciousness.
right.
Like I said, I think love consciousness, it's supposed to inspire us to be our best selves, but we're never going to be perfect at it.
Yeah. And like I think it's interesting because, every generation, I do a lot of ancestral work too with my clients, and every generation, sometimes my clients are like, but she's just not going to change, right? Or like my dad's never going to. And I'm like, that's not the goal with
Mhm,
healing. Like we're not changing this person, we're changing our inherent relationship and the energy, right? Like we're shifting the energy forward. We're
mhm,
clearing it and we're shifting it forward. And the beautiful thing about it is, every generation does better than the one before with the
mhm,
tools and resources that they have. Every generation moves forward and advances. But I'm seeing like a huge shift in where we're like really up leveling. Like, the our generation, the kids, like our future ancestors, like we're really doing a lot quicker. Like
mhm,
we're there's so much awareness, and I think that that is the missing link, that repair, because I can remember so many times where my parents said something to me and it was like we moved on. Like I never got a sorry. It was kind of like, nope, like correct your behavior or that's it. And I had no choice. It was like I didn't I guarantee to this day my mom will never apologize. She never I don't even I don't think like I've ever heard her apologize to anyone. She's just kind of like, well, that's it, and then she's like keeps moving. Like, I have a Filipino mom. Like she's just so set in her ways. And lately, as she gets older, I'll see like glimpses of like, oh, emotion or something, but then it's kind of like, like that retreat.
mhm,
And I think that that is exactly right. Like that repair that we didn't experience maybe as children. It was kind of just like you were corrected, you took it in, you internalized it like, wow, I did something wrong. I still struggle with this one to this day. Like I'm a disappointment. Like sometimes that continuously plays in my head like, oh, I just disappoint the people around me. That's like one of the biggest things I've had to heal. And because there was no, oh, you're not a disappointment. There was no backtracking of like, I know I made you feel this way, but that wasn't the case. It's kind of like me doing that healing work, like you said, on my own to establish that worth. And I think a lot of it, the love and the worth go so hand in hand.
Well, I love this. It's like we heal because of our families, not in opposition of them.
True. Yeah.
If you in opposition of your families, if you heal in opposition of your family, you'll get far if you move forward, but and again, I say this as like compassionately as I can. You heal because of your family. You heal because your family went through something, and because of that, it shaped who you are. And luckily, you're the ancestor that's like, I'm not doing this anymore. It ends with me. Like this is, and like you said, every generation heals something. Like I really believe, like the millennial generation as parents, we are healing the emotional trauma that
To-
our parents have unintentionally passed down to us, but they may have been healing from the collective normalized physical abuse trauma that they endured as children. So we have to trust that as long as we do our work and we focus on us, we don't do it, like a client will come to me and say, well, my grandma suffered this. Can I do a family constellation for it? My first question is, well, do you see that happening in your life? Is it showing up in your life? And they're like, not really, but I know it needs to heal. Not your problem. You just on the things that you need to do. You focus on you. You learn to love you because of what happened to your family. You honor what happened in the past and you move forward knowing that your life is meant to look very different than how it feels right now.
Right. No, I love that. I love that so much, Kat. All right. So, any closing remarks, any messages about Christ consciousness, love consciousness, the work that you do? What's coming through?
There is something that I wanted to touch on real quick, and
Yeah.
it's theme that I'm seeing a lot and I've like a lot in the last 2 weeks. Not ironically, I'm sure, but a lot of people are coming to me and saying, I think that my family's very stuck in masculine energy and it's a female, right? Or a man will come to me and say, I feel like I have a lot of feminine energy, and there's been a lot of like masculine and feminine energy within the family system.
Yeah.
And people are it's so masculine and feminine polarity is a big conversation, and I'm not a professional on duality. I'm just going to polarity. I'm just going to put it out there. But what I do look for first and foremost is the masculine is the protection, the wounded masculine is where are people hurting themselves and protecting themselves to keep themselves safe and
Mm,
just bonded to the trauma because it's only what they've known, right? And the feminine is that I'm seeing a lot is where have we lacked expression, creativity, owning our sexuality? Where has our sensuality been repressed?
mm,
We're coming out of a very collective patriarchal, I never say that word right, time where as a
totally.
society we've survived through the masculine, through war and economic crisis and the technology boom and immigration. We're living in a very masculine time, and this new earth that everyone is talking about, this age of Aquarius, it is deeply feminine. And so if you are currently struggling in your family system with the masculine and you facing your masculine and feminine, know that you are, and this is like fully from spirit, I'm getting this every single time, you are breaking down the old paradigms of your family system. Embrace the journey. Look into where you're protecting yourself and where you're not expressing yourself, and then lean into how you can express yourself. Like where if you're protecting yourself through a coping mechanism, survival mechanism, whatever it is, lean into it and do the work around it. And the message from spirit I keep getting is just like have them just put one foot in looking into when they're protecting themselves and when they're not expressing themselves. Because I think we're a society that stopped trusting ourselves a long time ago, and
Oh,
that started family system, and I think that started societally as well. So that's kind of something that's been coming through a lot.
yeah. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned it for sure. Like in the last year, my work has really shifted into women who are way trapped in the masculine. Like, and that goes into conception and
Yeah.
mother. Like, my body literally thinks it's a man at this point because I am so masculine in
Mhm.
all of the ways. So I love that. I think that's a really important message, and it's a beautiful reminder, um, that we are heading somewhere really beautiful because it can be scary, right? When all of the systems and structures that we have known are kind of like falling away from us, but it's also so beautiful. It's also so beautiful to witness and to know that something better is being built
Mhm.
for us.
And you're the channel for how it wants to move through. You're part of this collective awakening.
Yep.
And yeah, and try your best not to get overwhelmed when you feel masculine and feminine and that imbalance in the family system. Start with, where's the wounded masculine? How am I protecting myself and surviving rather than being my own true expression of myself? That alone, it wipes out a huge layer. And look at it from, where did this develop with conditional love in the family system? Like, that's the first place to start.
Wow. Beautiful, beautiful reflection as we close this conversation. So, all of our links are below if you want to continue the conversations. And thank you for joining us on this first live. We figured it out, joined from our phones, made it happen. And thank you very much. Enjoy and share your feedback with us in the comments.
Thank you.